Andy B here at Torch Trust near Market Harborough. We've had some great guests and we have not finished yet, so keep tuning in. And we've got more besides while we're still at Torch Trust, including in front of me, Sarah. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
Now, you're something to do with Torch Trust, I believe. So what is it you do here for Torch Trust?
Yeah, I hang around here from time to time. So I'm the CEO here at Torch Trust, and I've been here since January.
Right, so you're kind of new to the post. Why did Torch Trust become something you think, I think that could be a good fit? What drew you here where you could potentially have gone to 100 other organisations? Why Torch Trust?
Yeah, so my background before this was in student ministry. So there's not an obvious link between student ministry and working with blind and visually impaired people. But the strong link, the strong core was the fact that Torch was looking for someone that was wanting to focus on evangelism and discipleship. That's what really shone through. And they're two things that I'm just totally passionate about. So it was a no-brainer for me.
So student ministry, let's go back to there. So what was the student ministry that you were involved in? Is this kind of CU supporting regional CU supporting students? What was your work with students?
Yeah, so I worked with Christian unions for 4 years, and I spent 10 years working with international students with a charity called Friends International. So helping those who study in the UK, because it's hundreds of thousands, come and have the opportunity to hear about Jesus. Many will come from countries where that's not the case, or not easy for them to do. And so, yeah, we worked with different churches and groups to kind of help people share the gospel cross-culturally.
And then Torch Trust, which you've started this year. What's your current vision for Torch Trust? My understanding, having been here for a day, is it's a really family-centred kind of place. There's an ethos of people getting on with each other in a really relaxed way because they want to serve people who have got some struggle or difficulty with their sight. Either they're completely blind or they've got some sort of partial struggle. What's your vision with where we are at now with Torch Trust? And this isn't like an interview question, but now where are you hoping to take this next?
I mean, it does sound like an interview question. It's not a test. Good. So Torch has got an amazing history, some really deep foundations of real commitment to sharing the gospel, to having people be able to access the Bible and other Christian resources. And that is an amazing launch pad, I think, to kind of think, what does it look like in the 21st century? How do we go, okay, we have these great things, these great resources, but who are we not reaching? How can we be the people who take the gospel to people who don't have access to it for whatever reason? So in a way, thinking about my work with international students, in a way thinking about blind and visually impaired people as almost another culture. Obviously they're not, but things are different. And so actually thinking, how do we serve those people? So I want Torch to be serving more people. There are thousands and thousands of blind and visually impaired people. People are told they're losing their sight every 2 minutes. There's a massive mission field out there. There's people in our churches who think that they can't access the Bible anymore. And you just think, there's so much more we can do. So I want people to think, Torch can help this person. So that's what I want us to be everywhere. Not because Torch is great, though I think Torch is brilliant, but because God is great, and I want people to have access to being in relationship with him.
Which I think is something that came up earlier with, I think it was the first person I interviewed, I'm rubbish with names, so that's not going to help anything, but they went on a Torch holiday, not as a Christian, found that the people that were there they had what he didn't have. They were at peace. They were happy. They were joyful. And although he did lots of the same things as them, there was that thing missing. Well, that thing has a name. That name is Jesus Christ. And all of a sudden he found Jesus and his life transformed. Now he works for Torch Trust. But I chatted to Trevor Stammers, who I think you know, who's a lovely friend of mine. He's Dr. Trevor Stammers. And he talked about how he had a short-term permanent, like a complete sight loss for a short term, and it changed his world. It was scary, it was frightening, and if you've seen and it goes away, if you've got a leg and it's taken off, all of a sudden what you know isn't, and now you have to learn something completely new. How does Torch help people who are terrified, I guess, of, well, I can't see, how can I function, my life's over? Actually, no, it's not, because here's Torch to help you. How do you help people like that?
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is there's a difference between people who've been born blind and people who've gone blind. Because, like you say, when you've known something, it's different. But one of our wonderful regulars at our coffee morning that I think you've heard a lot about today because it happened today, has said recently that actually she's really glad that she doesn't have sight, because she thinks because of her lack of sight, she trusts Jesus more. And so I think there's something amazing to learn from that. But yeah, when people lose their sight, it suddenly can mean they lose their confidence, they lose their access to independence, they lose the ability to choose what they want to do when they want to do it. And so we offer many things. And I know I've heard other people already mention them today, but actually the fact they can join a community online. So Zoom is accessible for people with sight loss. And so that's why we host things on there. We can send out audiobooks completely free of charge through our library to people that can listen. If they do read Braille, we also have it in the Braille and the large print. But we want to be there. So our main contact with new clients is when people call us. So we have a phone line that people can call. It's staffed. Well, you've met them. They are lovely. They're a little bit, I would say, camera shy, but radio shy. So they're not wanting to come on today, but they're really lovely, and they will just listen to people and to ask questions and kind of say, okay, this is your situation. This is what we can do. So whether they need help getting out the house, something to go to, maybe there's local groups, or maybe it is a torch holiday, or maybe it's actually, I want to be able to have Bible reading notes. Like we can help with these things.
I had this conversation earlier with somebody about how it can feel as though you're the only person who has this problem, whatever that might be. I've lost my sight in my left eye. There's nobody else. They've got, they got two eyes they can see, or they can't see at all. So I'm unique, and it makes me very isolated. But actually, things like the coffee morning being open means you're opening the world to people, literally. So it's not just me and nobody else knows my problem. To you've been through this as well, and that's what Dr. Trevor Stammers talked about. He lost his sight, met someone from Torch who said, we can help with this. For him, it was making a cup of tea and pouring boiling water into a mug. Yeah, there's something you can do about that. He didn't know because it was new to him, and it's quite scary. But that's what I'm loving about just I keep calling it the happy chatter. It's just that lovely bubble of noise. So what's one of your favourite things that Torch does? Do you think, there's all these things, but I'm really so happy we do this particular thing?
Oh, that's hard making me choose one.
I know.
You're basically asking me to choose one department as well. Yes. That's okay. It's very cool. I'm just.
I was gentler on everybody else because that's fine. But you're the boss, so you get the harder question.
That's fine. I love the fact that we have the ability to produce literature in a way that is completely accessible. I think that is completely different to any other mission charity in the UK. I think we're doing something really different. But I also love the holidays and the fact that we do things with people. It's not just all about books, but it's about relationship. And the holidays are for people all over the UK. Coffee mornings I love, but geography limits, which is why we have the other regional groups. You see, I can't pick one because I think the whole thing fits together so well. So sorry, Andy.
Which is an absolutely splendid answer. Not diplomatic at all. It's perfect, actually, because it's really good. I mean, we're seeing a tiny glimpse from our visit today, but it is my overall impression of what I'm seeing is people who just want to serve people and kind of don't care about the rest. It's how do we help that person meet Jesus? How do we help this person have a better life as they are? It's an occupational therapy bit because I got my guest later on. It's all that stuff, but like you say, it'll come together because it's a holistic approach. It's not just here's something for your mug so you can pour water into it. Yeah, well that's great. Here's a book. Yeah, that's great. But it's people. Yeah, because people matter most.
Yeah, exactly. It is all about people. And that's what I want the focus of Torch to continue being. Torch started because of a couple who saw the need of a teenage girl who was blind. So Torch has always been looking to what we can do to help people. But also, I think increasingly we want to be about not just helping blind people, but helping blind people to be using their gifts and to be leading and to do what God has for them to do, rather than it just being, those poor people. But actually, no. You've got gifts. And like I said, the client that I mentioned earlier, it's really challenged me, actually. She says she loses her hairbrush and she has to go, okay, Jesus, where is it? And I'm like, oh my goodness, I deal with much bigger problems in my life because I think I can do it by myself. And you're like, no, actually, we need to learn from one another.
I'll share this story with you. I knew a guy when I first met him. My first impression was, "What happened to you?" Because when he shook my hand, there were many digits missing, and he'd had a tragic accident as a machinist, and he'd lost lots of fingers. And he immediately says, "But this is a blessing." Now my brain's thinking, okay, where are we going with this? He said, if I hadn't lost my fingers, I wouldn't have had a need. I would not have turned to Jesus Christ because I had nowhere else to go. So when I look at my hand, I don't see the missing digits. I see Jesus reaching out to me through it was a tragic accident. But that's how he turned to Christ. And this is the thing. We see all these terrible things, but he sees the missing digits, which everybody would say, that's terrible. And he says, yeah, but because I lost these, I found Jesus. And that's the difference. And I guess that's sort of something of what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's about actually how do we see Jesus in the midst of it? And sight loss is traumatic. It's a really horrible thing. There's another Christian charity we work with from time to time about deafness, and they often say, yeah, we're glad we're deaf rather than blind. And you just say, actually, well, I'd rather not be either. But actually, I get that. There's something about being able to see, to know where you are, to who's in the room. I mean, you popped into our coffee morning earlier. I don't know if you were there for a bit, where we literally just get everybody to say their name at the beginning, because you just think, you walk into a room, you know there's a crowd of people there. You don't know if your best friend's there. You don't know who sat next to you. And that is traumatic. And actually being able to reassure people that they don't walk into those situations alone, but they walk in with Christ is incredible. Like, that is certain and true hope.
One other question, which hasn't come up yet. Do you help churches who, because this is a conversation I had, somebody walked into a church, there was an overhead projector. I can't read that. Mm-hmm. Okay, we can joke about the Anglican Church classic stereotype, I can't see it because there's a column in the way. Well, if that's not a problem, maybe it's too far away. Having worked with children, the words are too fast. They can't read that quickly. So there are some really obvious things that perhaps we can identify. But do you help churches as well? If a church is thinking we've got somebody who's blind and we don't know what to do, how do we help them? Because we didn't know about Braille, or we didn't know about this or that. How can you help churches as well who actually want to engage with people in their community?
100%. So we have an initiative called Sight Loss Friendly Church, which is all about that. It's about helping churches think about those little practical things, because I think 90% of the time it's really, really little tweaks. But also thinking about those bigger things. Actually, you know, sometimes we have church with projectors that have moving images behind. Well, if you've got a degree of sight loss, that screen is then inaccessible to you. And so we've got a bunch of resources on our website, and also we run Zoom calls and training for churches to kind of ask questions, but also to be able to just come and learn actually what is it like, and what are those little tweaks that we need to make. That's all free, by the way.
Which is amazing. One church I was at, we used to print off all the songs were on a big screen, but there are a couple of older folk who could not see the screen. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had big glasses. It was never going to help them because they were older. So we used to provide large screen, a font, so like a big print. Mm-hmm. And now we got it to the size they wanted. And then somebody says, oh, can I have that as well? And, oh, can I have that? And all of a sudden you discover that the problem that existed, actually, it's much bigger than you think. And actually it's much easier to solve than your initial panic of, they can't access the screen. How are we going to get through this? They can't read the Common Book of Prayer. What are we going to do? Well, you can print it onto a piece of paper and they can hold it in their hands. I know it's a bit old school, but you know what? It works. And 1 in 5 over the age of 65 will have sight loss to some degree. So sight loss, so this is RNIB figures. This being defined as those who can't read even with reading glasses. So if you can't read the text, even with reading glasses, then you class as having a visual impairment. And so actually it's much more common than we think. And I think your example you just used there is really interesting, because actually it's something that can be quite embarrassing to say, actually, I can't read that anymore. And I used to be, and maybe I don't want to admit that because I'm getting older, this is harder. So actually having stuff available that people then know, okay, I can have this. It's not, I don't have to go looking for it. It's just accessible to me straight away, can be really helpful. There's a stereotype, isn't there, of the old guy. He's getting older and older and he can't hear, and his wife's shouting to be heard. You need a hearing aid? No, I'm fine. It's 4:00. No, that's not what I said. It's a funny joke and we laugh about it, but we know that to be true about hearing. So it makes sense that we have a similar, I don't want to talk about this or accept this, about our sight as well, which is why churches can be the ones that take away that by offering a solution before the person has to think, I'm not going to church now because they're not going to help me. They don't want to help me. They don't want to know. Here's a large print. I mean, that's just one example off my head that I've done in one situation where they said, we really love what you're doing, Anna, but we can't read the words. Okay, what can we do for you? Was my first question. And they said, could you print it and put it in a piece of paper? Oh, it's a waste, eco-friendly, green, stuff, all that. Sorry, that's rubbish in that context.
It's never a waste for people who have to access worship together or access the Bible. That's the thing, is we wouldn't put barriers up that would stop people in a wheelchair. And yet we don't see the same when it comes to people with sight loss. And so it is that kind of like, okay, so how do we view this as what it is and actually remove the barriers? And so we want to be accessible to all people.
I love that you're willing to help churches for free, because it's having worked full-time in church, we're always looking for help. Sometimes we get help thrown at us that isn't helpful, but actually having a place that can go, that can say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Could be such a game changer. Sarah, thank you. I know there's some more folk you want us to talk to before we finish at 4. So have you got anything you want to say to people who've never heard of Torch Trust? How do they find Torch Trust? Why would they want to ring you and say help?
So the easiest way to find it is torchtrust.org. So everything you need should be on the website. There's a phone number on there that you can call client services, who are a lovely team. They are lovely. Just like I said, camera or microphone shy. But they'll very happily chat to you on the phone. And if you're not sure, I guess if you've got any questions to do with church, faith, visual impairment, they're the people to call. And if they don't know the answer, they'll find it and get back to you. If there's ways of signposting people towards things, they want to do that as well. And that's how you can access all of our resources to begin with, is just by making a phone call, talking to them. And if you don't want to, some people really hate phone calls, I know that, you can just email info@torchtrust.org. You can do it all via email as well.
No excuse not to get involved. Right, we're going to play some more music and see who we can else get in before 4 p.m. But for now, thank you, Sarah.
Rated 5 stars by Sorted Magazine's film critic, Pure 247 takes you behind the scenes of the birth of a global Christian radio station. Andy B will have you laughing and crying as you discover what it takes to create ministry that matters in this inspiring tale of perseverance, honesty and vulnerability. Buckle up and get ready for a story that's uplifting as it is entertaining. Behind the microphone, they face bankruptcy, eviction and 2 life-changing surgeries. Can they make it? Will they make it? Get your copy of this life-changing book today. Pure 247 is available now on Amazon. Andy B is best described as a man after God's own heart, who insists that God's vision and resourcing trump all handicaps.